matchup this Saturday on NFL Network. I saw a couple tweets coming at us this morning already saying, can't wait to hear about how the Dolphins gave this one away. The first thing you're going to say, no, don't test us like that. We trust in Jason McCourty when I ask him takeaways from the Titans comeback win. Jason, where are you going first?
Bring up the Will Levis
Here we
footage.
go.
Let's give Will Levis some love. He was out there running around, trying to make tackles in the end zone after interceptions, trying to run over Jalen Ramsey. He plays with a ton of fire, spunk, whatever you want to call it. You see him flexing on the sideline. He hugged a guy that was in street clothes, almost knocked him out. But Will Levis talked about, even after the game, that DeAndre Hopkins tells him all the time, just throw it up, I'm going to go get it. Can't do that all the time, but once in a while you do that. And he did that last night. It wasn't pretty, but he made the plays towards the end of the game to win. And it was his first 300-yard game. And not only Will Levis, but Mike Vrabel, and Kyle said it in the highlights where he's holding up the two fingers. They're down 14, less than 3 minutes to go. He said analytics, research all tells you to go for two in that situation to give you the best chance to win the game. I'm like, what? Go for two? If you don't get it now, he goes for two, and he's sure that his team was going to get the ball back. They do, they score, and they win the game. DeAndre Hopkins went absolutely off. After the game, I saw someone tweet him, like, I can't believe this guy didn't sign with the Bills, the Chiefs, or the Ravens. They didn't offer, Bubba, was his response.
Yeah.
Tighten up. Those guys went out there, they won the game. Even with those mistakes late, the muff punt, the fumble, they found a way to grit out the win. A lot of it says about the Miami Dolphins and their ability not to close out, but give the Tennessee Titans credit for finding a way to win that game. In a season where it doesn't seem as though they're playing for much, they're fired up and they're playing hard for Mike Vrabel.
Let's dive a little bit deeper into that two-point conversion decision.
All right.
Yeah.
As we look at Vrabel and we see this giant, hulking former linebacker tight end in the NFL, and you think, well, he's all just bluster. This was so savvy analytics-wise, and at the time you're wondering, okay, you're down 14, you score a touchdown. Traditionally, you just kick that extra point, you're down 7, make a stop, get the ball back. They go for 2. This has been attempted only 25 times since 2018, and only 2 teams have won of those 25 times that have attempted this. But the analytics tell you it's what you do if you want to win in regulation. If you don't want to go into overtime, you do this. And they were feeling themselves. And then the defense had to make the stops, guys. The defense was huge here. I know, we talk about, can Miami win the big one? Since 1976, a team hasn't lost in this fashion. Up 14 at home with this amount of time left.
76 Dolphins probably great.
1976, yeah. The Steelers beat them. The Steelers defense is pretty good. We're never going to talk about the 2023 Titans the same way as the 76 Steelers. But in this case, what an epic loss for the Dolphins. But this is Vrabel saying, you know what? I got nothing to lose. I'm going to go for it. And it was actually the savvy thing by the analytics folks. 538, all those sites tell you when you're down 14 and you score and you're losing on the road, you go for 2. They converted, and then they had the opportunity to get it. They stopped, they win again, and they do it in regulation.
It's so funny to me. You say analytics tells you that, and then you say he's done 25 times and only twice.
Because they don't get the ball back. They don't get the opportunity to get the chance.
But it's so funny to me sometimes when you insert analytics and then you say the numbers, you're like, well, that doesn't really make sense because it doesn't work. But it worked last night.
Won in regulation, yep.
I just love the idea that Vrabel's supposed to be pushing nerds into locker rooms.
Exactly.
And he's not like that at all. This is a disciple of Belichick and is learned and everything. Meanwhile, can I get some analytics on the picture between Jamie and Jason right now? I mean, give me some analytics on that. That's a shot. Come on. Look at the size of the artery going through this bicep. This looks like the Lincoln Tunnel on this thing. My God, you could do peddling bachelorette parties down Broadway down that thing. And Will Levis, I'm going to talk about him significantly in the Aggie Runs portion of the program. Very, very excited to watch him. He has almost Jameis-like potential in that you can't take your eyes off him, even when it's going badly. When he threw the interceptions to the D lineman and tried to tackle a guy 80 pounds more than him 5 yards deep in the end zone, that's just him. But I think we have to talk about Miami. This is the folly that we do in the league where you look at someone's remaining schedule and you say, oh, that's a win. That's a win. It's not. The games are hard. Nobody looked at Miami's remaining schedule and was like, well, they'll lose at home to the Will Levis Titans. Nobody.
I saw Titans and Jets. They said 2 wins.
That's it. It's simple. And now they're probably going to do it again with the Jets next week. But, look, I don't know who ESPN, I'm sure they all picked the Dolphins. And, of course, I would have picked the Dolphins, too. It's complete folly. You cannot do that. And we as a show should remind ourselves not to assume wins. Couldn't close it out. And now they're going to have to answer all these questions about really how good are they? Are they fake good? All that stuff that they've had here all year long. I do want to say one thing about Tyreek. I've seen takes this morning that he's out of the MVP race. if you're really genuine about this, last night should have helped them in the MVP race. I am a big fan of putting the word valuable into MVP. It has become just a stat race. Just have the biggest numbers. And Tyreek's never going to win unless he has 2,000. Last night showed his value more to this team than some of the games where he's had 150 yards and a touchdown. They look totally stagnant without Tyreek. And McDaniel saying afterwards, there's plenty of guys out there to run the offense with, and I agree, but it didn't look great. Tua lost a lot of his moxie when Tyreek was out of there, and I think that showed Tyreek's value. So you voters, just be a little open-minded, a little creative about what value really is. When the guy's gone, we're spinning our wheels. I think it was a good night for Tyreek's MVP, but they're not going to see it that way.
Back to the Lincoln Tunnel artery, just with Will Levis.
Gorgeous.
This shot is actually mid him approaching Mike Vrabel for a hug that was between a man wearing full pads and a head coach that is not wearing pads, yet still looks like he could take on a hug like that.
Yeah.
Like those two, the scenes that we had from rookie quarterbacks last night hugging their head coaches. We're going to get to Tommy DeVito and Brian Daboll in just a second. But that is fantastic. The Titans hadn't won a road game yet this season.
Yeah.
They had it was hard for them away from
14
Tennessee.
points with 2 minutes.
240. And the guts and the reliability, and I thought the veteran presence of both Derrick Henry, despite it just being in the red zone, Derrick Henry having kind of a challenging game, but being able to punch things in. I think they both paced, and DeAndre Hopkins paced Will Levis in a way that he really needed.